Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to be here and to take part of the first innovation conference. Last night, I was invited by my host here to the restaurant Pixida. We had a great dinner over there, and this morning I heard the great story of entrepreneurship of that restaurant. How the guys who worked over there decided to start their own company, to start their own restaurant. I think it's a great story because they were in a crisis and they decided to take their destiny in their hands. I don't know the details of the story, all the details of the story. I just thought it's a great story of people who basically their workplace was closing down, and they said, okay, this is what we need to do now. We need to survive. Let's get together and start a new place. And I think it can be an inspiration. And this is something that I think many societies taking the advantage and use and actually implement the cliche of every crisis is an opportunity. And what I want to talk to you today to tell you a little bit about the story of Israel, how Israel actually turned the very challenging starting point to a very successful and vibrant economy around technology. Just brief about us, so you know about me. I'm in the business of technology for more than 20 years, about half of it on the investment side. What I wanted to show here is a little bit what we do today. I'm part of a fund that's called Canaan Partners Israel. We are part of we're affiliated with a very large firm in the US, which runs manage $4.5 billion, 400 companies, more than 160 exits. And what we do in Israel, actually, we started a fund that is dedicated to assist entrepreneurs in Israel in their early stage, assist them going to the US. And not only that, we built also a network in China. So we have also investors in our fund, like Lenovo, which is the largest computer company in the world, TCL, which is a very, very large consumer electronic player over there in China, and some many others. I wanted to show that because this is also going to demonstrate the Israeli story, how Israel is identified many years ago, and I will touch upon this point later on as well, the very, very important how to be connected and integrated to the world. Like in Cyprus, we have basically zero local market for technology product. It's meaningless in a global sense, so when you start a company immediately, you go global. And not only my fund, but also other activities in Israel are around connecting Israel to the world. Not to be introvert, but extrovert in our business activity. This is critical. So Israel was very fortunate to have a very challenging starting point. Israel until a few years ago, did not have any natural resources at all. We had zero, as I mentioned, zero local market, only 8 million people. I know it's a few times more than Cyprus, but still a very, very small local market, close to zero. We had security needs. This is not fortunate. This is unfortunate, of course. But the security needs required a lot of budget and efforts from the society. We started again with the very, very scarce energy resources, from basic water to land, not favorable weather in most parts of the country. And we started with a country of immigrants which had no basically assets, nothing. The only thing that they have is themselves. So very, very challenging situation from the beginning. And today the situation is quite different. I'll show you a short video, 1.5 minutes, about some of the technology activity that we have. Oh, just a second. I need some help here. The voice. Let me just turn it. Where's the volume button? It's good.
Traveling less creativity. You plant them in soil designed to nourish them. They yield fruits of endless new inventions.
Maybe one thing, and this is what the crisis also bring about and assist, is maybe changing the culture of taking the risk. And leave the big company and start your own business. And it's okay. If you fail, your business failed. You are not a failure character. It's just your person that failed in that business. You start another one. This is the life of the startups and entrepreneurship. And it's I think the society here also may take advantage of it and basically make this change in the culture. So just tell you about one element. The ecosystem of technology in Israel requires a number of things that I'll show later on. I will touch upon one thing, is that how we create a situation where about $4 billion are being invested in technology sector per year. And it starts actually when some Israeli VCs with foreign investors start invest in a company. The early days of Israel, there was, of course, zero VCs, like very, very few ones here in Cyprus. And that's the first push. Actually, is should be contributed by the government, and that's what Israel did. Israel realized that, again, as I mentioned before, need to be as part of a global, you have to be extrovert. So together with the private sector, the government decided to create a fund of funds, $100 million, 10 funds, $10 million each, and to give to private sector, basically, 10 funds to give them the money to start. But there was a condition, and that was a big condition. They only match dollar for dollar if you bring money from outside. So if you bring $10 million from foreign investors to VC fund that you create, you'll get the $10 million from the government. That was a great push. Now, there were not success stories in Israel, like there are very few success stories in Cyprus today. So why should investor invest in Israel? So the reason that Israel looked very, very carefully and decided to give an incentive for investors to invest in Israel. And the incentive was that if the fund is successful, then the investors can buy the shares of the government in a nominal value, like the $10 million plus very, very minimal interest. If the fund fails, basically the government lost their part. So basically, if you think about it, basically you can have, as a foreign investor, you can have a double upside on your money when you invest in a VC. Okay? That was more than 20 years ago. And that was the initial incentive for foreign investors to invest in Israel. And that's how actually the VC community started. So we had these funds that invested in the Israeli companies. And then what happened, as I mentioned, you need to go global. So the Israeli startups, what they did, they started, building the companies. Now they have some financing, also not too many companies, but some, but the startups that were created by these VCs started to grow and develop international business. Now when you develop international business, you get the attention of the large corporations, either for distribution, as customers, as suppliers, as business partners, maybe as strategic investors, and you start to develop the relationship, and they realize, few of them start to realize, okay, this is a quite exciting team. Why don't we have them to start and build our product roadmap in addition to what we have today? So multinationals start to buy Israeli companies. And this is, of course, a very happy event for the entrepreneurs, very happy event for the investors as well. Now, what happened in this point, basically, multinationals, let's say they bought the Israeli company, then other multinationals look and say, wow, well, if IBM bought the Israeli company, maybe also we should look at Israel. It can be an interesting place. So when it starts to become more common situation, and we reached to a situation today where we have even kind of serial buyers of Israeli companies. If you look at Microsoft, at Intel, IBM, Cisco, see the number of companies that they bought, and they create more and more R&D centers in Israel around the technology that is developed in the country. Also the government realized that and basically provide very, very easy, consistent and trustful system to allow the multinational to easily integrate with in the Israeli regulation. So there are different policies. For example, if you acquire an Israeli company and want to take the IP out of the country, and the company got some finance from the government, there is a certain formula that the multinational know how much they need to pay the government for taking the IP out. If a multinational would like to start an R&D center in Israel, just to build an R&D center in Israel, they get for a few years, they get subsidy from the Israeli government for the salaries of the engineers that they are hiring. Also, as I mentioned before, everything done in global standards. So when they come to do due diligence on our companies, it's very easy, and it's like buying an American company. Also, the labor regulations are quite easy and flexible. So it's easy to hire and fire people. So just make it easier for multinationals to do business, and this is a critical thing. Also, if there are policymakers in the audience, I think this is a critical thing to be open, make it easy for them, because this is a critical issue for the economy. Make it not to be afraid, not to be concerned. I give this speech in a number of places in the world, and something, oh, but they will take jobs from our people, and this, they take the technology out, what we're going to do. I mean, this is a key factor, and I'll show you a little bit later on why it's a very, very strong element in the economy. So if you look at the transactions that in the last, even only in the last few years, the last 5 years, you see that the estimation is this year we're going to have more than $8 billion in exits. And these transactions are mainly M&A, so these are the exits. And when you have that, then you have a very, very attractive technology ecosystem. And I continue with the process. So we start with the VCs that invest in a company. Then you have the company going out of the country. Then you see the multinational acquire. And then what happened is that the Israeli entrepreneurs, usually after they sell the company and they get millions of dollars, you can say, okay, why don't they go and play golf and maybe buy a yacht and do some trip around the world. What happened in Israel is a different case. First, we have only 2 golf courses, so not the community golf. But there is something in the culture that made the people, okay, I did it once, let's continue and do that. Because, again, the mother-in-law effect, well, why don't you do something, okay? So you start a new company, and you're fed up working for a multinational because you're an entrepreneur, and you have entrepreneurship characteristics. And this is great, because also for us as an investor, definitely to invest in serial entrepreneurs, it's quite beneficial in terms of risk mitigation. So what happened in the Israeli high tech, you see that basically hundreds of companies getting funded every year. This year, which is a record year, I mentioned $4 billion will be invested in this in the startup activity by the VCs. Usually it's between $1 to $2 billion. I must say that this is really a record year in our industry. And most of them are coming from serial entrepreneurs that I mentioned. They sold the company and they start again. So this creates, again, more entrepreneurs, more success stories. Then you bring more foreign investors to invest in the Israeli startups. And the situation is today that 95% of the money that is invested in the startup scene in Israel coming from abroad. Only 5% from Israel. And this is the phenomenon in the country. And it's because this circle that I walked you through here. So it just creates new companies are being established, going global, much easier for the foreign company to work in Israel. They acquire, turn it into another R&D center, and the circle goes on and on. One interesting statistic is that mentioned earlier that Intel is very active in Israel. There was a survey that was around Intel itself because it's quite a large employer in Israel. Over the years, about 10,000 employees left the company, just as a regular turnover. Talking about 40 years that they are active in Israel. And out of Intel alone, generated like 300 startups over the year. So it definitely pays off for the government to give even tax breaks specifically to a company that build big operations in the country, because over time it's definitely paid itself. If going back to the international investors, we see that, as I mentioned, 95% of the money comes from abroad. Even on the left side that you see the Israeli VCs that are Israeli brands, the money that goes into the Israeli VCs, more than 90% of it coming from abroad. So the LPs, the investors, are foreigners. And we see more and more multinational VCs coming to Israel. They operate in three ways. One is they just invest from mainly in the US. Second, some of them see that it's quite successful. They open an office in Israel. And the third, the right-hand side, the third way of international VC to work in Israel is basically to have a local VC dedicated only to Israel, where Sequoia, which is probably the most successful VC in the world, is doing, Greylock is doing, and that's what Canaan, which I'm part of, also has done. And this is thanks to all the story that I walked you through, from turning the bugs into a feature. The government identified, and together, not replacing, but together with the private sector, support and provide the right ecosystem to have easy operation in that, and build this over time. So basically, today we have a very, very healthy ecosystem for entrepreneurship and innovation. So the first and the foremost important thing is the human factor, and I think that, as we learned before from Marius and the rector, this is a very, very critical part. And I think you have that also in the country. Then we have the very strong support infrastructure that I mentioned, from the corporate R&D and the public R&D. Israel, more than 4% of the GDP goes to R&D, which is a very, very high percentage globally. And you have the capital availability that was built over time. So it's not only one factor. Okay, sometimes I hear, and I came also from Athens. I came yesterday from Athens to here. I was participating in a conference over there as well. And they, when people, okay, we need the money. If only government give us money, we can do that. No, it's not. You have to work on all the three factors. One is the human factor, and I think create a very, very good basic research institute like is being built here in this university. I think it's critical. you need to have the government support, and not only support, but to take it as a strategy. Okay, we are thinking this is the direction, and there can be a lot of opposition to that, but I think to take this as a mission is critical. And of course, to start with some capital availability, public and private, and then push it forward. And I think it's not necessarily related to technology. What I show here, it can be in technology, but can be in other sectors of the economy. And I think in this way, you need to be open and see, okay, what is the strengths of the country, what are the core competencies, what competencies of the people, and then create this strong ecosystem that involves these three elements. So thank you very much. That's kind of the Israeli story.